The following is brought to you by Bleacher Report. If you guys want to check out my live post-game reaction show, make sure to have the Bleacher Report app downloaded and ready to fire up right after the game. You'll find me in the Chargers section. Bolt up. Go to Bolt fam, it's the director with our reaction to the Chargers Colts game in which the Bolts would fall to the Colts 38-24. In a game that I think was a bit predictable. I'm not going to say that we were completely out on the Chargers on this one. Obviously, I had a score prediction of like 24-23 in favor of the Colts. So we felt it would be closer than this, but ultimately a win for Indianapolis. However, this one would get away from the Chargers really, really quick. And that is unfortunate considering, the Charger Power Week was here, dude. I don't know about you guys. Let's start off with that because I think it was fun. I thought it was something that was cheeky and something that really grew on me. The Chargers marketing and Chargers design team and everybody that went behind getting the yellow jerseys out there with the 60s, memorabilia and logos and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was awesome. That it was a great vibe. Not a lot of people liked the yellow jerseys, by the way. It grew on me. And going into this game, I was like, okay, maybe we find some luck with these jerseys that get a lot more people behind the idea of gold being in the Chargers, wardrobe going forward. And especially after what has happened over the last several seasons with, you guys remember the midnight blue jerseys, the midnight navies had like the outline of the bolt. I thought that was a fresh look. I liked them, but they gathered some stigma around them as the Chargers really never won a game in those uniforms. Yellow jerseys, gold jerseys, not off to a good start there, considering that we got kind of trounced in this one versus Indianapolis. What's the word where a horse gallops on top of you and like pounces on top of you and just, it just pummels you with those hooves? Whatever that word is, that's what happened between the Chargers and the Colts this week, which is definitely unfortunate considering, I had it being a bit closer of a game. I was hoping the Chargers would find some momentum in this game that would make it a lot closer. And I will say there are parts and points of the game where it felt like we were starting to see that happen. But holy cow, were the Colts just so good at snuffing out any sort of hope whenever the Chargers would find some success. And I think some of the biggest plays of the game are going to be forgotten due to the Bolts giving up a touchdown almost immediately afterwards or not generating that big play on defense. This game was full of ifs, ands, and buts. Very few, I'm going to say there was very many opportunities for the Chargers to really turn this thing around in their favor and never just quite, amounted to that. It got really, really, really redundant to just how much we're seeing the same thing over and over again at some point where it's like, it was almost, but then we dropped it at the last second. Probably some of the best examples of that were, the Chargers scoring a touchdown, I think in the first possession of the second half, and then holy cow, here come the Colts just scoring immediately afterwards, just snuffing out any joy that we could have had in our momentum there. There was that 4th and 1 turnover on downs that Chargers fans getting really excited about, and then they reviewed it and showed that the second effort he was able to stay on his feet, and the Colts would ultimately score a touchdown on that drive. It's just over and over and over again we saw stuff like that on repeat, which was very unfortunate. Now, even without that, I still think it would have been a tough game for the Chargers to win. Sure, there was some big swings, here and there, but let's be honest with ourselves for a second, and this is probably the biggest pill to swallow for Chargers fans. A lot of people may consider this making excuses or copium, whatever the case may be for you. This is where I stand and where I stood before the game. The Chargers situation sucks right now. It is what it is. We are missing a multitude of huge players all over the roster, in particular the offensive line, which has made life extremely difficult for Justin Herbert. And we got to praise him for the stat line he put up today, despite, having to really run for his life once again this week. The reality of the situation is today we were running out there with our 6th and 7th string tackles. The interior has not been good. They've been bad since last year. Zion is starting to step up a little bit, but by golly, Bradley Bozeman has just continued to be a disappointment. It was really, really bad out there. No Omarion Hampton, no Najee Harris. Things that could have maybe helped the Chargers tip things in their favor a little bit more just are not on the roster right now. We did see some good news in the form of Khalil Mack make his return this week, which, of course, he's going to have to ease his way back in a little bit. But I saw him out there making some big plays. I think he ended up getting a sack in this one. But even with all those things being the case, let's say we did have the offensive line, this and that. Do I think we could have won? Sure. The Colts flat out are a good team, too. You know what I mean? Like, on top of all the setbacks, we're playing a pretty good football team, which, again, I got a lot of flack for this week, but that's why I picked the Colts to win it. There's just too much going against the Chargers, too much going for the Colts right now for me to feel like we can just waltz in there and take a win in Indianapolis. It just did not feel like the timing was right. It didn't feel like it was in the stars. And even though it was expected, it doesn't mean it hurts any less. It doesn't mean I'm any less disappointed. It does suck, but I want to start the stream off. I know we're already like 5 or 6 minutes in, but I wanted to start off before we even looked at the stats and dissect things. I wanted to let you guys know that I really believe brighter days are ahead. You know, I went into this game expecting not the best result. My wife could attest to that. I gave her a hug before my stream, and I said, hey, I'm not sure about this one. I think we may end up losing this one. But I followed it up by saying, but I have a good feeling about next week. I think we're going to see a nice bounce back versus Minnesota. And that is still what I'm expecting. Okay, the loss happened. There were some good moments for the Chargers. But I think that real get-right game is coming up on Thursday. Which, short week, that sucks. Would like to see more players back on the roster, this and that. But the fact of the matter is, it sounds like Joe Alt may return, much as people may not care. Trey Pipkins may return next week, or I should say on Thursday as well. We have Khalil Mack, who should be easing in a little bit more. Denzel Perryman may be getting up to speed a little more. Those reinforcements are going to be massive. Because I truly believe that the season, it took a sharp left turn when Joe Alt would come off the field injured versus the New York Giants. Who's to say that his return, maybe, hopefully, versus Minnesota couldn't have the opposite effect of like, oh, we are so back. Left tackle's a big position, man. One of the highest paid positions in all of football. And Joe Alt is one of the best ones out there. So him coming back is a big stinking deal. All right? With that being said, I wanted to give you guys just a little bit of hope for the future. I think this game was one I was kind of expecting to drop. But next week, or I should say Thursday, is one that I'm expecting the Chargers to get right, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Now, some things that we did see in this game that could really help the Chargers improve their odds for the second half of the season, because, mind you, this upcoming week is week 8. We're at the halfway point of the year. I think it's how you finish, not how you start, right? So the second half of the season is going to offer opportunity for the Chargers to really gain momentum in different areas, get their players back, and ultimately get back to form, right? They were one of the most feared teams in all of football in the first month. They've fallen off a lot because of injury. Now, we're starting to see some other parts of the offense really come to life, just as we're getting our left tackle back, just as things are starting to improve in other areas. It could be cool. Now, one of the things I mentioned to you guys, 55 passing attempts is absurd. But look at this, dude. 420 yards. 3 touchdowns. Yes, the 2 interceptions suck. I have one of them that I think is blatantly Justin Herbert's fault in the end zone. Inexcusable. The other one was batted in the air and fell into the hands of the defensive lineman. It happens, right? That's just plain bad luck. But look at this rating, man. Look at the yards. Look at the effort. He had some crazy running, too. 31. The lead rusher on the team was Justin Herbert with 31 yards. Like, my goodness, what an effort from Justin Herbert, without even thinking or realizing just how bad that offensive line was. You wouldn't think that with how many yards and how much status he put up this week, but he did. The offensive line was so bad once again. Like, I'm sure we're going to go on PFF and have a good laugh at all of the numbers in the 40s and the 30s. I think we had one at 24 last week in Austin Deculus. And at some point, Deculus went out and we had to go to our 7th string tackle. It's just been hilariously bad. But despite that, Justin Herbert really showed us why he's so special. I wish it could result in a win. I really do. But I don't think anybody in their right mind could look at the stat line and say this was all Justin Herbert's fault. I think he played a heck of a game despite having to work against that offensive line. Okay? I'm seeing Joe Alt doesn't help with our interior line. No, but again, left tackle is maybe the second most important position on offense, and getting back one of the best in football will have an impact. Trust me. Rushing, again, this is also something I absolutely expected. There's a lot of people excited about Vidal last week. I am as well. I think he could be a decent backup going forward, but this just wasn't the matchup, okay? The Colts are very good versus the run. We knew it was going to be struggle bus for him this week. He only put up 20 yards on the ground. It's one of the reasons I was still pushing for the Chargers to go make a trade. I want to go get Rocket Sanders or Jerome Ford or somebody that can, or Breece Hall, somebody that can help Kamani Vidal until we get Amarian Hampton back and then serve as that RB2 that they were hoping Najee Harris would be this season. That's the kind of signings I'm still looking forward to. Maybe trade that I'm looking forward to for the Chargers as we get closer to that deadline, okay? But I think where the real optimism comes in for the rest of the season, something that is going to shape the way this offense operates going forward, was undoubtedly this man right here in Oronde Gadsden. We were waiting for the breakout game. It took until week 7, but he has finally arrived. 164 yards and a touchdown, be it in a soft matchup for tight end. That's something, again, that I was like, hey, watch out for Gadsden. This is a good matchup for him. Their linebackers suck in coverage, and as do their DBs. Because, Gadsden lined up everywhere. I saw him out wide a few times. I think maybe even his touchdown was where he was lined up out wide. He is becoming one of the most dangerous threats on the field that I think a lot of us were expecting to see at some point this season, maybe next season. But this feels very soon to me, and it's something that we really need right now. We have some pretty good pieces. I'm not going to lie. It feels like, Harris had a couple of clutch plays. Quentin Johnston, not his best game, unfortunately. But, Ladd has been stepping up again. Keenan Allen is back in form. Now we got this guy, Oronde Gadsden, who in all reality looks like a prime Darren Waller and somebody that Justin Herbert really is starting to vibe with. 9 targets. Sure, it's third on the team this week, but he threw for 55 attempts, right? But 9 targets is awesome. The conversion's even more insane. He turned that into 7 receptions for 164 yards and a touchdown, a long of 53 yards, which just shows how special he is of a tight end in terms of his speed and separation. Everything about Oronde Gadsden becoming the next big player for the Chargers offense is really moving in the right direction. Some people were really impressed that this was the game he would go off in because, of course, earlier in the day, we saw that ceremony for Antonio Gates getting his Hall of Fame ring presented to him. This almost felt like a passing of the torch to Oronde Gadsden, the next best or the next great tight end of the Los Angeles Chargers. And they have a history of a lot of really good tight ends in their past, including, of course, Antonio Gates, Kellen Winslow. I know Mackey was out there for a while too, right? There's a lot of really good history at the position. It feels like we just stumbled onto the next one because Gadsden looks like the absolute complete package. Have to take a closer look at his blocking. Maybe that's the one area where you're like, we need to see a little bit more. But in terms of receiving, I don't think you can ask much more from a 5th round pick tight end. Absolutely insane. I'm now seeing that the chat says that Denver won. Yep, Denver will be on top of the AFC West after this game, unfortunately, guys. Just keep that in mind. Yeah, there's Denver. They're going to be on top after this game. They're going to go up to 5-2. That one hurts. We're not out of it yet, though. I'll recap what I said at the top of the show here in just a second. Defensively, Chargers really struggled this week, though. Let's actually start here with the Colts and their stats for the week. Daniel Jones, 288, 2 touchdowns. One of the better games of the year for Daniel Jones, and one that I was kind of thinking the Chargers would be able to hold him a little bit longer in terms of his passing yards. Like, it felt like the Chargers passing defense has been, for the most part, really good this season. Not in this game. Again, the Colts are a special team. They're very, very good. Jonathan Taylor and his rushing attempts, 94 yards, 3 touchdowns. We have to have a conversation about the interior of that defensive line, man. What's crazy is that Tear Tart grades as the best run defender in all of football from the interior defensive line. And it is not amounting to anything this week or even the last 3 weeks. Jonathan Taylor, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and then whoever last week gave us problems too. It's just been bad. It's been pretty bad, dude. And it's something, or Devon Achane, right? It's something that the Chargers really are going to have to hone in on and figure out how to address, because if this persists and the Chargers' run defense is the Achilles heel of the defense again, I don't know. And now that with the passing defense struggling, it's even more of a concern. They would have a number of positions, or I should say players, go off for some pretty good status this week, too. Pittman had some big catches. Warren had the touchdown and the big catch, too. Alec Pierce what was his long? 48 yards. Chargers are normally really, really good at limiting these big plays. Not this week, man. It was tough. It was very, very tough. And then looking at the Chargers individually from a player standpoint, it just felt like people were struggling all over the field. This did not feel like a normal Derwin James game, right? He let that tight end, which I'm assuming was his primary guy in coverage, get away from him several times. 2 plays where he, I think, got like 20 yards a pop. Unacceptable. Tony Jefferson, right? I mean, I don't know how much I noticed from him. Benjamin St-Juste, although he had a couple of really nice plays in terms of like pass breakups, he had an opportunity for a turnover, which the Chargers were not able to generate this week. That's also a big problem they're going to have to talk about. Dante Jackson, same thing. I think both of these guys had opportunities for picks. It did not happen. Some big penalties on this side, too. Tear Tart had a big one as well in terms of penalty. Denzel Perryman, although he's back and I'm excited for him to be back, it did not feel like the old Denzel Perryman, right, where he's helping us up the middle and taking down Jonathan Taylor. It was pretty sloppy all around, right? The one bright side I will say is the pass rush at one point looked really, really good for like a quarter and a half, right? Khalil Mack got the sack. Welcome back. Return of the Mack, right? Owe had a couple of plays where he was looking really solid versus the pass. Tooley was looking good too, and then it kind of fell off at some point. It shut off. We didn't see it again, and unfortunately, it just added to what was a really bad day for the Chargers defensively. So, what I'm going to say is that yes, we expected this to be a tough day. I always have faith in my Chargers, but I'm also, open to understanding their situation and being okay with it, so long as I know that better days are ahead, and I know better days are ahead for this team. Starting as soon as Thursday, man, I'm so excited for that game. I will be in attendance of that game, so those of you guys expecting a Bleacher Report episode after the game, not this week. I will be at that game, enjoying what I'm predicting is going to be the bounce back game of the year for the Chargers. It's been a struggle bus for this team ever since Joe Alt went down. It has been surviving games like the Miami Dolphins win and losing games like this where it's just, man, there's really nothing working out for the team. Next week, I think, is the week where things start to turn around. Again, it's not a gimme, right? Every Sundays is you got to take serious. These teams are very good. They were very good versus the Eagles this week, despite some sloppy play in the first half. The Vikings are a good team, but so are the Chargers. And I think as they get guys back here, we're going to start remembering that. This was, again, one of the best teams in the whole league the first month. And I don't want us to forget that. And I think this upcoming week is where we start to remember why this team were definitely in the conversation for Super Bowl favorites and this and that start off the season. Joe Alt coming back is going to be huge. Pip's going to be Trey Pipkin's going to be a big add back as well. But ultimately, taking everything that we've learned, everything that we've seen from this team, from Justin Herbert having an MVP caliber season, to Oronde Gadsden's breakout, to Omarion Hampton hopefully coming back and showing us that he's, one of the better, rookies of this class. All of that added together, I think gives us a really good opportunity to hit the ground running hard in the second half of the season. I have a lot of faith that the Chargers can find that rhythm again. And if they can finish strong, I think they could be as dangerous as any team in the postseason. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. Hit us up with a follow here on Bleacher Report if you did enjoy this content. We will catch you next time. Remember, no stream next week, but we'll still have the shorts and stuff coming out because I'll be at the game. But we'll catch you next time as we get ready for the Vikings game, and then eventually it's the Titans game after that, right? It should be interesting. A nice opportunity to get ready and bounce back. We'll see you guys, as always, bolt up and stay frosty.